I cannot wait to introduce you to Justin Shaw. He's amazing. He's got a book called Sorcery 101, and it's not what you think. It's very interesting, and he's going to talk about his journey and how he got to be who he is. And he talks a lot about energy. And I love that you mentioned spiritual bankruptcy. We want to talk about that. And Justin, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Trauma Rockstars podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here and there and everywhere. It's the magic of the internet.
Yeah, and you're also a comedian, and you
Mhm.
you add a lot of humor to all of this crazy world stuff that we go through, and I love that because it's a way of keeping, probably keeping you sane. Tell us just I know a little bit, but tell the listeners a little bit about you and how you got to where you are and writing your book and everything. Dig deep into that though.
Okay, so I've got it down to kind of a pretty lean 12 minutes or so. So if you allow me to kind of ramble for a little bit,
Go for it.
yeah, because it takes some setting to kind of get us there, because the important thing I like to get up to people. There's empathy and there's sympathy, and sympathy is hearing someone's pain, and empathy is feeling it with them. And I like people to know I have a lot of empathy for people because I've been through my fair share. Certainly. So, it kind of started my journey of tough times in childhood. I had a rather, emotionally neglectful childhood. It was just me and my mom growing up. My parents were older when I came into the picture, and they were already struggling at the time. I think they had me, and then kind of when I came around, that crack in the marriage morphed into a canyon. And so they went their separate ways. So it was just me growing up. My brothers and sisters, I do have brothers and sisters, but the closest one to me is 19 years older, so that's the closest one. I have one who's
Oh,
23 years older. Yeah,
okay.
so they were out of out of the house by the time I was even born, let alone as a
Mhm.
toddler and everything. So although I'm not an only child, I was. So it really was, it was just her and I growing up, and, she was going through her own pain with the divorce. She had her own tough childhood. My parents being older, I never met, any of any of them except for my mom's mom. And, as I got older, things made sense as to why she was the way she was. She had a lot of kind of depressive issues and anxiety issues where she'd kind of lock herself in the room for hours at a time. And we didn't really spend a ton of time together. I mean, she just didn't know quite how to love. She wasn't able to say the word. She wasn't a good big hugger, and these are all things that kids need. If you're not going to tell a child that they're important, loved, and valued, then they'll look to the world for those things, and the world will always tell them that they're not important or loved or valued. So that's kind of what happened with me. And so, it just grown up around that time period, like the kind of 90s time period, that my escape was comedy. So there were so many funny things going on at that time, like it's Jim Carrey had all his movies, which were just, had so much fun impersonating him. The Simpsons were at the absolute peak of their
Of
game in the
course.
90s there. I mean, just those episodes are just classic.
Family
Yeah,
Guy,
yeah, Family Guy that came along a little bit later.
Seinfeld.
Saturday Night Live was big for me. I would stay up
Yeah.
late and watch that when I wasn't supposed to, and
Yep.
that was kind of the all-time great lineup for me, which was, Adam Sandler and Chris Farley and David Spade and Phil Hartman and, Dana Carvey, and just I mean, it was just this Yankees Murders Row like lineup that just had me in stitches all the time. And I would do impersonations of them. And that was one of the things I did to make my mom laugh. It was kind of I'd do impersonations, and I wouldn't do, George Bush Senior was the president at the time. So I wasn't doing an impression of George Bush Senior as much as I was doing an impression of Dana Carvey doing an impression of George Bush Senior. And that would kind of crack her up, it'd be like, take the trash out. And I'd be like, Mom, not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture. So I'd do those funny voices and stuff. And so I'd make her laugh. And that was good for me because it would be, I feel energy. I just always been very sensitive.
Yeah.
Making that, having fun with that. So in high school, I certainly was class clown in middle school and high school. But in high school is when I found another release to my pain. As a child, it was comedy and, movies, video games, and food. Those were the kind of thing. As I got older, drugs and alcohol came into the picture, and I was like, oh, wow, this is a really easy. route to get rid of the pain.
Yeah, you said didn't you say your 20s were really bad?
Yeah, dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, 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 total dumpster fire. And so, it was just in and out of, just I had moved to LA, and that's when things got really bad. I was trying to do the stand-up comedy thing, and I was kind of doing that, but more, doing drugs and drinking and stuff like that and finding that whole scenes. Things got bad. I went to rehab, um, kind of around 26, 27. And so my understanding of drugs and alcohol is just, I'm suffering because I am physically addicted to all these drugs. And if I stop, I go through withdrawal, and that's horrible. So you just need to lock me away and, get me clean, get my body cleaned out, and then I'll be fine. This whole spiritual mumbo jumbo, all that stuff, like that's no, I don't need any of that. So I went and tried it my way, which surprisingly it lasted 90 days. I'm actually not quite 90 days. I think it was like day 88 or something. That Oh, surprisingly, I didn't know everything. And so when I went back the second time, now I'm like 29, and this time it was like, okay, all right, I'm open to this whole spiritual thing. What do you got? So I went to a spiritual center, a rehab center, and it was kind of Christian based. And so it went, this was the Christianity went really well with the kind of AA. AA is essentially just kind of disguised Christianity. So those things really went well together. And so that, I was able to at least be a functional member of society using those things. Looking back on it more, I was living an extremely mediocre playing life, but I was functioning, which was a huge win. So, I thought that was amazing. But Christianity, it was one of those things that I realized that I came up with an excellent metaphor for it, because it was like, I moved in at the time when I got sober. It was like moving into a giant Christianity kind of AA. It was like moving into a giant mansion, right? This mansion is 10,000 square feet, and there's 17 bedrooms and bathrooms, and it's got a pool and a game room and a movie theater, and like, life is great inside the mansion. But, as, time moves on, you realize you're not allowed to leave the mansion. And then the mansion becomes kind of a prison. This is a
Mhm.
metaphorical mansion, and in regards to, exploring other religions and other things. And, you're not supposed to leave the mansion, because they tell you it's a zombie apocalypse out there. You don't want to leave the mansion, and it's terrible. And you don't just, it's death out there. Stay in the mansion. So you're scared to, do any other, Buddhism and meditation, and these are all taboo things, even like yoga. I mean, it can get crazy with some of these sects of Christianity that's just like so scared to do anything that is unbiblical. And like I wasn't in any type of cult. This was just a non-denominational church, but it really I needed deprogramming like I was in a cult after I came out of it,
Yeah.
because I found that this metaphorical mansion is built on this cracked foundation of fear, judgment, and control. So for me, the mansion started crumbling around when my mother was pronounced terminally ill. And that year is traumatic enough, when you kind of see someone's body dwindling away, her mind from the dementia. This whole thing is happening over this course of a year, which was very difficult. But what was 100, 1,000 times more difficult was this programming I had, that she never went to church. She had nothing to do with anything Christian. And so therefore she's a heathen and she's going to hell. And so this whole time, and that programming within my brain, like, it broke me. Like, it truly broke me. I went right back to drugs and alcohol. I was scared all the time. I just was living in constant fear that, my mother is eternally damned. And so, after she passed, that's when I started exploring different things, because the mansion had crumbled around me. It was no longer a mansion. It was just rubble. So I had
Mhm.
no choice but to leave, because what was supposed to help me through that time period made it 10 times worse, 100, 1,000 times worse. So it crumbled. And so I started investigating other things. And so I traded my pastor for a shaman, and he started questioning these beliefs that I had within me, not only from Christianity, but from childhood, and questioning these beliefs that may not actually be. And so, and getting me into meditation and seeing how that goes, and what that can do. And so all these things led to what I can only call a bliss attack. It was my bliss attack. And it was just this one day, and I wasn't even meditating at the time. And I had come back from a gym workout, and I was just doing a stretch, and all of a sudden this it was like a panic attack if you replace panic with love. So it was like this onset of all of a sudden just this wonderful, loving feeling. And it was 3 hours of this. And also at the same time, with the way I'm feeling, I'm getting downloads from,
Of info.
yeah, of info. And I know these are all truths because there's no way they're not truths because of how I'm feeling. There's no way any of this because there's just no way it would be too contradictory. And so, and it's so much information. I like to say it was like drinking water out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a bit much. And I kind of had to say at the time, like, like, slow down, this is too much for me to handle. And it did, and it kind of gave it to me in other time periods. But that's when everything changed. That's when I realized I had spent my entire life in airplane mode, my whole life. So I realized that there is this field of information that surrounds us at all times, and that can be tapped into like a keg at a frat party. It's like it's this, and it's source energy, and that's how my book is spelled. Sorcery. It's spelled with a U because
Right.
it's not about magic and moving things and turning your roommate into a frog, although that I'm sure that'd be nice sometimes. But it's real magic. It's like
Mhm.
and I believe a lot of that stuff is possible, but you got to start with your inner self and get your energy right, and that's what sorcery with a U is. So source energy.
Yes.
It's like explaining water to a fish. So that's, if you think about that, that'd be kind of tough. It's like, well, it's the substance. It surrounds you. You breathe because of it. You move because of it. Everything is what you are. You wouldn't be anything without water. And so that's what the source energy is. It's this field that surrounds us at all times. And once you see the water, now you want to go and tell other fish about the water. And that is exactly what happened with me. There was still some struggles I had after this bliss attack, and I've had several since then. And the book came to me during a bliss attack. So
Interesting.
it's these. And so what the book is essentially a map or a blueprint to help other people have their own bliss attack. And so it's just fascinating how everything has kind of worked to get me to this spot. Everything's still very new, and I'm adjusting everything, but it's been amazing. Amazing.
Can
But yeah,
you
that's
Yeah, can you I love this. Can you relate your bliss attacks to anything specific? Like, is it always after the gym, or are you
mm-mm.
usually alone? Is there any, like, I guess, common denominator when you get them?
No, not at all. So they've come after the gym. They've come when I'm alone, and they've also come. I had one in rehab a couple years ago. The final time I went to rehab about 2 years ago, I had one inside the rehab when I was sitting like in a group setting. And I just
Mhm.
had to get up and excuse myself. I didn't say anything. I just like got up and like went to my room, and it just like flowed in and was giving me. And it was giving me direction for what I'm supposed to do after rehab and how things are supposed to look, and all this amazing information. And so, no, it is completely unpredictable. I cannot figure out, like, I want to have a bliss attack and sit down and do it. I can't do it. There's probably been since the original one about 4 or 5 years ago. I'd say there's been about eight. And yeah, they come when they want to come, maybe less, maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. Not a lot. But they come when they want to come. And when it's always welcome, but I can't say, "Okay, it's time for Bliss Attack." They just will just
Mhm.
kind of show up at random times. But I had one about 3 weeks ago. It was it was amazing. I love it when they happen, but no,
Yeah, because
can't
it's a
can't
gift.
can't predict. Yep, can't predict.
Do you meditate, Justin?
Yeah, every day. Yeah, that is
Okay,
a
so
critical
me
part of my day.
yeah, me too. Okay, so being that you practice your meditation and all that, is this something that you think is coming to you from a higher power or a guide, or do you see any energy source when this is happening?
Yeah, I like to call it my near life experience because it's not a
Oh,
dear
I
it's
love
not
that.
it's not a near death experience because
Right.
I am not dead. So it's this near life experience that just kind of happens. And no, I'm not. So the best way I can explain it is I emotionally die every time I have one, but I don't physically. No, I'm not. I've never been the whole out of body experience. That sounds amazing. It's never happened to me. I've
Okay.
never left my body. The
Ah.
when you see, the leaving and you see love, none of that. I'm always where I am, but
Mhm.
I'm getting downloads and I'm feeling these amazing feelings. And essentially, from my understanding, it is what I'm feeling like. it's like to die. And I'm not suicidal by any means, but let me tell you, it's pretty great. There's
So
nothing to be
there's
scared of. I can
zero
tell
fear
you.
of death, basically.
0, 0. I'm very excited, but I have more here to accomplish. I certainly don't wanna,
Course.
like, put that out there and say, like, and I have a lot more to accomplish here, and this place is still pretty amazing, and so there's more to do, but I also am kinda can't wait for it too, so I'm excited for that next journey.
That's incredible, and that's, like, what all of us that, practice our meditation and we try to get this, like, this is what we all are striving for, is what you're it's just coming to you naturally, and you
Yeah.
don't even have to be meditating to get it, like,
Mm.
that's huge. Like,
Yeah, 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 and
I
there's
wanna be like that.
well, I wrote a book for people to like it is a map, it is a blueprint, like,
Yeah.
go through these this is what I did to make this happen. And, it was amazing that it came to be. It just set it up, and so there it's set up. I was in AA for a long time, of course. So like the 12 steps and like, well, steps and moving forward, that's good. But, moving up is better
Mhm,
because a bird has a better perspective on things than a worm. So instead of steps, they're rungs, and
mhm.
they're very fluid. They're not, A's are very rigid. I'm very wary of any institution that doesn't embrace change. So, religions, AA, these are things that don't embrace change. You don't go in and say, why don't we change it doesn't happen. And the only constant in life is change. So I just don't very wary of any institution that does not embrace change. Yeah.
I was just gonna bring that up. Where do you stand now on the religious front? And it sounds like that Christian group that you were in almost re-traumatized you.
Mhm. Oh, it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely did. And, I kept all the good things about Christianity and dumped all the fear-based dogma crap
Mhm,
because that's all lies. Like anything
mhm,
that makes you feel anything that gives you the ick when it comes to like either reading the Bible or anything, that kind of fear-based stuff, and anti-gay, and you need to conform to be a true Christian, and otherwise you're going to hell. That's all just absolute garbage. All of it, just complete garbage. So I just threw all that away, and and started borrowing from other religions and things like that. And with I borrow the best from. So religion to me, it's like a like a lantern that's lit with a candle. The light within is what matters, but religion focuses on the lantern itself,
mhm. Right.
that's holding the light, when that
Mhm.
has nothing to do with it. The light is the only thing that matters, and there's a light in every single religion, and that should be the focus, not the lantern and what's held in. And everyone thinks their religion is right, and theirs is it's all crap. It's none of it's true. They're all correct and all wrong at the same time.
Yeah, I was raised, I went to Catholic school. I was raised, you gotta love the Catholic guilt they enforce on you. But I still
Well,
consider myself a Christian, but there's so much that says, okay, this is against what's in the Bible.
yeah.
Like, see, you're not supposed to try and connect with your guides, and you're not supposed to try and have a higher power, and you're not supposed to talk to mediums, and try and reach out to ancestors or even like past life regressions, any of that. What do you say to all that?
Well, they don't want people knowing how powerful they are. I mean, it's as simple as that. The
Yep.
religion was created so that people don't actually, it's like I need this pastor because I don't have I don't have a direct line to God. I need this intermediary to help me, and I'll go him. He knows what he's talking about. I am nothing. I am just this powerless, weak human, and this force. But really, you are God. Like you are. It's not about letting God in. It's about letting God out. So it's all this stuff, and it's like it's anti-biblical. But the thing with the Bible is, like if the Bible was a piece of art, no one would buy it. There's something in the art world called provenance, and you can trace, the Mona Lisa is priceless because you can trace it back to the hand of Da Vinci. And no one really knows. Everyone has guesses of who wrote some of the Old and New Testament. There's guesses, but no one really knows. And all we know for sure, it's supposed to be a kind of channeled from, but what we know for sure is it didn't just happen. So a human wrote that. And if there's humans involved, the possibility for corruption is there. There's The
Yeah, or
Bible's
it misrepresented, or, like you say, you tell some 5 people a story, all 5 people are gonna have something different to say about it.
Yeah, that's the interpretation portion of it too. It's like
Yeah.
they're the same words yet interpreted completely differently. And so the Bible is just this brilliantly written, and it's just, it is full of both divine wisdom and egregious bullshit. And it's both. There's both in there. So it's a matter of, going in there and saying what connects with you, what vibrates with you. I like to say like a sorcerer will read the Bible, and it's a bit like going into a cave, because caves can be dark and scary, right? But there are many valuable gems to be found in this cave. And if you go in and with that, kind of idea, and you can pick out the gems and you leave all the rest, because a zealot goes in and comes out with the gems, sure, but then they get weighed down by all this useless rocks and dirt that just does nothing but weigh them. That's what it did for me. It just all this other crap that's meant to control and suppress people did nothing for me. It held me back. So yeah, it's
Interesting.
spelunking for the gems, and that's the best way to read the Bible, because if it hits you in a way that's like, that's not, those are lies. That the Bible is both truth and lies, and it is up to never let another person interpret it for you. That's the main thing. If you're going to read the Bible, interpret it for yourself. Don't listen to a pastor, or don't, like, this is their interpret, fine, that's yours, but I'm going to do mine. And that's the thing
Mhm.
with the whole sheep, and just like, don't be a sheep. Like, my pastor used to always talk about sheep and the flock, and they openly talk about that like it's a good thing. And it's just like, sheep don't want to think for themselves. They just want to be told what to do. And that's one of the rungs, is goats over sheep. So it's like,
Mm.
goats meaning greatest of all time, but also the animal too is kind of this, not, does its own thing and really doesn't, so it's sheep are not a good, everyone blames Hitler for the Holocaust, but let's be real here. If he didn't have sheep, it would have never happened. He can
Yeah.
spew all the hatred he wants to, but if he didn't have people going along with it, and then there's the goats in that situation. Oscar Schindler, he stood up and said, "No, none of this is right. None of the goat right there." So sheep it's not a good thing, and they openly talk about it, like, just be a sheep, and they talk about Jesus the shepherd, but it's not Jesus. Jesus didn't, I go into a pastor's office, I see a seminary school diploma that says they, quote, understand the Bible, but Jesus wasn't the one who signed that. So how do how do I know that that is Jesus says, putting your stamp of approval on what you're saying? So I'm not following Jesus. I am following you, who says you're following Jesus, but I'm taking your word that what you're saying is accurate. So I'm not following Jesus at all. I'm following you. So it
Yeah,
is
wow.
very important to understand what's going on in your church, and you're just like, you're just accepting that they know what they're talking about. But again, Jesus was not the one who gave the mark and said, yep, this guy can speak for me. So you got
I've
to think for
never
yourself.
I've never heard it described like this before, and I'm kinda mind blown. So, because you said a couple things. It was holding you back, this was holding you back, and these mediaries, whether it's a pastor or a priest or whoever, was the direct line to God, but you don't need that. You're the direct line,
Yep,
and I've
yeah.
never heard it described like that before, ever.
Yep, that was part of my bliss attack,
You're
was like, you are the direct line, and go tell everyone else they are the direct line.
Yes. We
Don't
all have it
listen to
within
other
us.
people. Don't listen to my interpretation of the Bible or anyone other. It is for your heart and your heart alone. And that's where people
Mhm.
get astray, is they think they need an interpreter, but they do not. No one needs an interpreter. But without that, churches could fall apart, and then pastors don't have
Mhm.
a job, and so like they don't want that. So they're gonna keep people in line and keep people
Yeah.
suppressed, and you need me, and we're gonna do it this way. And so it's a very clever magic trick for me, is what I noticed. It's like it holds this amazing, you get this amazing feeling from it, and all this good stuff, but then they subliminate. So the last one I went to, the last service I went to, it was fairly fascinating, because I figured out, like, kind of how they do it at these, even just these non-denominational ones. Because of course you have the cults and stuff that focus on
Yeah.
fear, and you have that, that's obvious, right? But these non-denominational ones, which are very open, I figured out how they did it. So it's they he was the this one in particular was about prayer. And so it's okay, prayer. Let's, I'll go for that one. It's and so he's talking about prayer and kind of how to pray. And there's kind of some things that I agree with and some things I don't agree with. And like kind of, the line of prayer and there's and so it's like it's okay, it's going okay. And then but then he starts talking and he's like, and because we all need to start figuring out how, our prayer life because Jesus is going to come back and he's going to pick off the pretenders. And that was it. That one line and then he went right back to talking about prayer. So that one line subliminally now sets fear in everyone's, even if they won't consciously remember that line. Nobody
Right.
will. They'll remember the it was like, "Oh, it was great. It was about prayer. It's amazing." It's just but that one line is now in your subconscious, and it's because it's impactful. Jesus is gonna come back, and he's gonna play favorites, and he's gonna pick off the pretenders. That right there that's what keeps people in fear, and they won't consciously remember it. It's just that one line. So, like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff, I have no problem with people going to church, but just be aware that even in these non-denominate, they slip that stuff in there so that because they need to keep people in the seats, and you need to and to do that, you need to be fearful, and so it's fascinating how it works. But and another one, and another one I remember went to several years ago. This is while I was still active. It was really telling, very telling. He asked how many people, there was probably about 300 people in this auditorium, and he asked how many people are confident of their salvation. 30, 40 people raised their hand, and I could see in his eyes, he's like, "Oh, that's not good." So, like even people that are coming to church are still not convinced that they're going to heaven, that they're not good enough. And that is the constant kind of thing that they hold out. And are you good enough? Is it good enough? And like, can you? And so it's this constant. Okay, I got to keep going because, like, I don't know, I don't know if I'm good enough. And even the most pious of people, yeah, in there would, and because a lot of them think it's arrogant to say, "Well, for sure, getting into heaven, I got to get in." So like, it's really interesting to see that even 90% of that auditorium, Christian people, were not convinced they were going to heaven.
Or they were afraid to say that they knew they were.
Yeah, or they are, yeah, or they were afraid to, yeah, to like stand up and be confident, right?
Right,
So
right, right, right.
yeah,
And
so it's fascinating. I love that I spent that kind of time in there because I've really picked up these things and like, wow, this is really not for me.
so when you get these downloads of information or have these spiritual moments, even from the very first one, did it after that were you like, I get it now, like I don't need rehab, or did you still struggle? Because I mean, we're always on a journey, but how do you,
Well,
navigate?
yeah, there's been several. So the first one happened and it was transformative and like I didn't but there was still some stuff I had to go through during that. There was a couple years of, still struggle with substances and I had
Mhm,
some, I was still coming down from, after my mom died, I had a sister die, I had a close childhood friend die, I had a ex who has her own spiritual issues. She went to Boston and took our infant son and never came back. I still have not
mm,
seen them. So I had some stuff to go through. And but that's the thing is I kind of took my power back and I went to rehab that last time and, took it back and said I can do this. And I don't need these things that suppress me any longer, and I can kind of do
mhm,
my own thing and I'll be fine. And I have been. I'm very grateful to be sober now and because I took
yeah,
my power back. And that's the thing with like the AA that I have a big right there, step number one, you have to admit you're powerless. Like and that's that kind of foundation that AA is built on of just being powerless and you're just a weak, morbid, human that has not you're nothing, and, God is everything, and it's outside of you, and that's just not true. So, that's
mm,
one of the things I try to get out to people that, that is crap, and it's very dangerous programming if you think you're powerless, like, and 99.99999% of people that come into AA are gonna relapse. That's a lot of people's stories. It's very rare to occasionally there's someone that gets up there and has had 60 years or something sobriety, but that's extremely rare. And so when people relapse, if they think they're powerless, they completely fall apart because they're like, "Oh." I'm powerless. And so now I need to go back to rehab. I need to, but that's not true. If you've been sober for a long time, you've created a new neural pathway in your mind, and you're just at a crossroads if you relapse. So you can go the route of the sobriety and keep working that route, or you can continue because you've got two pathways that have been created, that
Mhm.
are well-trodden pathways once you've been sober for long enough. You've got your addict route and your sober route. And so you relapse and you're at this crossroad, and you always have a choice of which you don't need to go back to rehab if you can take your power back. And so you take your power back and you go down that neural pathway that's there. You built it, when I was rehab is a very important thing, especially when you've never been sober to show you need people to show you how to do it. You need to show you
Yeah.
can do it, like so, but like these people that have been to rehab, 13, 14, I went 5 times myself because I was under the impression that I was powerless. So if I relapsed, I had to go back to rehab. It's just
Mm.
I was told I didn't have the power to stop, but that's just not true.
Right.
So yeah, it's very dangerous teaching in my opinion, that whole being powerless thing.
And do you I know we briefly talked about this too when I talked to you before, but having this information and not feeling powerless anymore, has it given you a new sense of confidence and enabled you I know we talked about this especially with men to be vulnerable.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanna get out to is one of the biggest reasons I was struggling is because I was denying the whole feminine side of me, like, as I was in this more toxic masculine mode that,
Mhm.
was very destructive for me and very, very destructive. And so that's one of the things I like to get out to, males and younger males is, you don't have to lose your masculinity when you let in some of the feminine side. You don't have to lose any of that. Letting in the feminine side will get rid of the toxic traits, but you're still very male. Talking about your feelings, cry. I cried probably almost daily sometimes. Now it's not really when I'm sad. It's just this gratitude will just
Mhm.
overcome me, and I'll just start.
It's emotions.
Yeah, emotions are okay, like they're good. They're why we're here. Allow them to happen instead of doing that toxic trait is to just shut them out and be like they don't exist, and that's really damaging. So that's part of what I want to get out there. And that's you don't lose masculinity if you let in some of these feminine traits. You're just gonna you'll attract more women, like or the
Yeah.
partner you're with will, wanna get down with you more, or you'll attract more partners, or and you don't have to lose my favorite movie is still Fight Club. Like, I still yell at the TV when the Cardinals and Suns are losing, like, Pink
Ah.
Planet, Rage Against the Machine are still on constant loop in my phone. I've lost none of my masculinity, but I also will cry and talk about my feelings.
What does it mean for a man to embrace their feminine side? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, talking about how you're feeling instead of just pretending that you don't feel a certain way. Pretending you don't have feelings is bad because
Yeah.
every human does. So it's about being open and feeling the feelings because like we can also shut them out to where we don't feel them. That happened to me and I would shut them out. So that aspect of talking them through how are you feeling and just allowing things to come in and it's really healthy to cry. It's really healthy to cry, and that's what I figured out is like
That release.
it feels good. It feels
Yeah.
good, and that's something that's just taboo and not allowed for, like, you have to be a man and not cry and be strong all the time, and that's all this false toxic, agenda that's just not true and is very damaging and destructive. And there's a lot of males and young males out there that are really suffering because of that. So it's it's embracing the emotions, just, feeling them and don't, it's very easy to, there's pain duckers. Alcohol are a big one, of course, but, there's, the food and the phone are two of the biggest ones I see that people just can't put down or let go of, and they use that to fill to not feel. So there are millions of things around us every day to not feel. It's very easy just to continue to not feel. Unfortunately, at some point, if you keep bottling things and suppressing them and not feeling, they will eventually come out, and they come out in a massive
Yeah.
depression or the bottled up and just kind of explode at some point. So if you're constantly dealing with them as they're coming up, that's healthy. And then you won't have these. I would have horrible depressive episodes, and I'd wonder why. Well, it's because
Mhm.
I never felt anything. I just went from one thing to another. And even during my Christian time period, I wasn't using drugs and alcohol, but I was finding other things to fill it up.
Right.
And it's there. It's easy to just kind of switch addictions and continue to not feel. Like you get out of
Yeah.
you look a little bit more functional because you're not using drugs and alcohol, but, really it's just the same things you're doing all over again, and it's just exercise and, food was one and sex and women and dating, and so they're just very easy to turn to and to not feel.
I love how you said, getting in touch with your feminine side, you don't lose your masculinity. And you mentioned that you'll attract better partners or have a better relationship with your partners. Explain to me, because I know your book talks a lot about that energy. So explain like, all right, tomorrow morning, Justin, you're waking up. What kind of energy are you trying to put out there in the world? Because I don't think, especially the younger generation, I mean, we have a lot more information out there now about this, but I don't think a lot of the younger generation realizes how much their energy affects what's happening in their worlds.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So, yeah, the best way to get more love is to give it away. So, if you keep that in mind, that's a good way to start things. But, your world is there's a constant looping feedback between the world you see and how you're feeling on the inside and outside world. And in
Mhm,
order for change to happen, you have to change the inside, which is very difficult to do because the outside doesn't look like it's changing. It takes time. It's so there's this looping feed, which is how, the rich get richer and the poor stay poorer, right? Because that's that looping feedback sequence, and the rich get richer and they just do more and more things, and the poor get poor because their outside world is affecting how they're feeling on the inside, and then that
right,
inside world is affecting what's going on in their outside world.
mhm,
That's the loop, and it happens whether you want it to or not, consciously or subconsciously.
right,
In order to change your it's like, say, standing in front of a mirror. If you're standing in front of a mirror and you're frowning, the mirror isn't gonna change itself. If you there's no way that mirror will start smiling until you do, because it is a direct reflection of you.
mhm,
So, for the outside world to start to change, you have to change your inside world, and then the reflection starts to change, and over time things happen. It's quantum physics. It happens at the very smallest level, and it's provable at the quantum level. It's not
mhm,
it, they don't understand that at the quantum level it happens at the bigger level too. We live by time. Time is something we have to it's part of our existence. We need it as a marker, but it's not real. It's like a prop in a play. Like we have to pretend it's real, but it's not real. So it takes time, which is why people kind of lose the enthusiasm for change, and the mind heart coherence and changing your life, and how it's like a beacon you're sending out to the universe, right? So if a boat
mhm,
is off the coast and it's going down, it's like way out there, and so it's sinking. It sends out that rescue beacon. The Coast Guard will get out to you, but it's going to take hours and hours to get out there. But once your beacon is going, like, the Coast Guard is on the way. But if your beacon goes off, well, now the signal is lost, and now the Coast Guard has absolutely no idea how to get to you. So the beacon has to remain on until the Coast Guard arrives.
uh,
So that's where you have to understand you can't just like, "Well, I tried this for 2 weeks and it just doesn't work." Well, no, you leave the beacon on, and it will find you. I can't give you a time frame. I can't,
yeah,
but it will eventually find you, and that's where, it certainly has found me. I'm still creating and creating my new life and things like that, but
mhm,
it certainly found me and will continue to find me because my beacon will continue to stay on. But that's how change happens, is there's that reflection nature and being the energy of love. It's what we're here to do.
mhm,
It is what we will both leave here and take with us because it transcends space and time. So this is a whole simulation of practicing love,
mhm.
like a flight
And
simulator.
meditation helps a lot with this, with
Oh
what
yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's,
meditation
like,
is the biggest
huge.
place to start. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the second rung. It starts with the first rung, which is shadow work, and the second one was a call for inaction, which is just it's a call for inaction. It's just, sit and be.
Mhm.
Because if you're constantly being a human doing, you can never be a human being. And it's just it's the meditation is like the convergent focus. We're in all the time. We're in a convergent focus now. We're constantly most humans are in a convergent focus that the vast majority of time they're awake on the phone, TV, kids, blah blah blah. Your focus is converged on something worldly. Divergent focus is what's created in meditation, and so that's a broadening of the focus and a focus on just everything.
Mhm.
It would be like if you were standing up to a brick wall and you had your nose against a brick wall, all you could make out would be a blurry shade of red, and that would be convergent focus. But if you take a step back, well, okay, so you can see a brick. Take another step back, you'll see, okay, there are bricks stacked on top of something. Just take another
Mhm.
step back, you're like, oh, this is a wall. Take it even more steps back, you realize this wall is attached to something, and then you go further back, and now you realize what was just a blurry shade of red is actually this magnificent castle.
Mhm.
And that's the divergent focus, and that's what it takes in meditation, because source energy can never talk to you if you're constantly converged, your focus is converged. You're basically telling this magnificent creator of everything that you're busy. And sometimes we are busy, and that's okay. But if
Yeah.
you're constantly telling I'm busy, then it can never talk to you. You have to like take a break and just be and watch what happens. It'll start talking to you. It's pretty amazing.
You said another thing that just blows my mind, and we've only been chatting for a short time. Explain what human doing is so you can be a human being.
Well, we're always I mean, we're human doings right now, and so we're just constantly doing things and living our life and here to there in the busy life, and we have to do things. We can't be a human being all the time, but a human being is just when you just are able to just be, and you don't need these outside distractions or influences, and
Yeah.
you can just be. And it's very difficult for a lot of people. It really is.
Especially
And
with social media and
yeah,
the younger generation.
yeah, the attention span is really screwed up. Social media is, it's not to villainize social media, but it's been abused by it's been more abused than it's been, given, being useful, unfortunately. And it's kind of ruined a lot of attention spans of these younger people. And it's sad to see that they can't even, focus on something for more than a few seconds and they have to move on to something else.
Well,
You know,
and it emphasizes how important, like, material things are when they're not. Because you see, you're on there and all you see are these amazing lives these people are living for 5
illusion.
seconds.
No, that's the
You're not
illusion.
you're not seeing the other, 23 hours and 50 minutes of their lives. You're just seeing that 5-second, 15-second amazing clip that's put up there, and you're not seeing everything else that's going on behind the scenes. And they're saying like the is it the Gen Z? Is that what they call?
Yep.
Is they've got the toughest life to grow up around all this. I'm so glad I didn't have it growing up, and
No, I didn't either. Yeah, I mean, the
thank God.
kind of
Yeah,
millennial generation and yeah, yours is that it's
yeah,
yeah, we didn't have all that. And well, I have a great example. So I was on thing I deleted in 2020. I was so sick of social media. It was, the COVID and the politics. I just deleted it all. I deleted it
yeah.
all. And I had 4 or 5 years. I'm back on Instagram because I want to connect with people and I use it in a better way now. But it
And
was
there are a lot of good things that social media
yeah,
does do, and that's what you're talking about, that connection and information. There are positives.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's just the illusionary part of it. It's, like back when I was on this was probably 2010 or something. I was on Facebook when you needed a college email for it, like way a long time ago. I've had Facebook. So it was a friend of mine that I knew in high school, and he'd post these pictures of himself, and he had gotten married, beautiful wife, 2 very young kids. And so there's a couple years and you'd see, of course you only see the good stuff. And so all of a sudden they go on a trip to Greece. And so there's like, this week in Greece and you see these pictures and oh the water's amazing and this the sand and it looks like they're having a really good time. And about 4 weeks after that, they announced that they were separating. So
Mhm.
the illusion of that Greece trip being amazing, they were probably fighting all the time, and
Yeah.
that trip was probably trying to save their marriage, and it didn't work. So,
Right.
but the illusion that was set through is they're on the beach and they're having, cocktails and hanging out and they're having a good time, when in reality, that trip was probably a nightmare because they were divorced
Yeah.
4 weeks later. That is the illusion. It is an illusion. And
Yeah.
that's what's people don't, it's just don't understand is like there's more going on behind the scenes. And
A lot more going on, and
yeah.
how do you and it's so hard with social media now because I think that the millennial generation has gotta be so insecure. How do you tell I mean, I think this is really gonna resonate with younger people. I mean, it does, it will older people too, but how do you tell somebody, a younger man, take your power back, get your confidence back? Because it's got to be so hard. And plus, depending on the circle of friends they have and things like that, you know how important your friends are at that age, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough because it takes practice. It doesn't just happen at once.
Right.
You're rewiring your mind. So,
Mhm.
you are rewiring it to the person of confidence, but it all starts in feeling, like the whole law of attraction, they say act as if, well, if you feel as if, no acting is even needed. So, it starts in meditation and kind of feeling that confidence, taking your power back, that's where it starts. And if you start your day in that energy and seeing how your day is going to go and envisioning the future, you're connecting to an energy that already exists. There are
Mhm.
multiple timelines and there are multiple yous. There's so much that goes on in this reality that we have no idea because it's
Right.
it's hidden behind the veil. But the truth is there's lots of different yous, and whatever energy you're feeling is what is the you you're calling in. So there's definitely a me that's on a park bench somewhere with the needle in my arm. There's definitely a version of me doing that.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be this version of me because of the energy I'm constantly keeping. So I'm calling in
Yes.
the author person that's going to help people, and that guy. That's the guy I want to be. So my energy is calling in that person. And
Mhm.
so it takes time for the two to converge, but all of a sudden after a while you're not no longer trying to be that person, you just are that person.
Yeah.
But you have to try until you are, and that's kind of like I say, "Don't stop before the miracle happens." Well, the miracle happens when you've aligned yourself and you know the person who you wanna be, and you become it. But it
Mhm.
takes effort in the beginning to kind of call in that energy, find the you wanna be, picture that, bring it in, live that, and then
Yeah.
eventually your mind starts to be like, okay, we are this person. And then it takes no effort. Then you just are that person and you're just off from there.
And then you start attracting your tribe.
Yeah.
And if you don't already have that, people fall off, new amazing people come in. And, it sounds your book, Sorcery 101, love you describe it. You're like, it's the four agreements meets the secret with humor, you
That's
know?
yeah, the four agreements meets the secret meets a million little pieces.
Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah.
With humor to it, which I
Yeah.
think, will be a lot of fun for people to read. Do you find that maybe if somebody, wants to buy your book, and of course I'll include everything in the show notes and how to, get your book and everything. Do you also coach people?
Yeah, that's my spiritual Sherpa. Yeah, I do one-on-one, and I always do the first one free. So if you just want to talk to me for a little bit, I'm cool with
For
that.
like a consult kinda
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, like a consult. Yeah, the first one's always free. And I can even send free copies of the if you can't afford it, I'll send a PDF copy of the book because I'm more about getting that information out there. Yeah, that
Oh, that's so generous of you.
yeah, I just, I wanna get it out there. So that's I can certainly send that to
Yeah.
anyone. My email's sorcerer13@gmail. So that's just so with a U. But yeah, this whole Sherpa thing, you can't get to the top of Everest without a Sherpa, and a Sherpa is not gonna put you on their back and carry you to the top of Everest. It's your journey. So I
Yeah.
like saying I'm a spiritual Sherpa in that I guide, but it is your journey. And the spirituality can seem like a little bit more daunting because there's no summit. There's
Mhm.
no peak to reach. You never until you're on the other side, you've never reached the top of spirituality. That's just not possible on this side. So you're constantly, so it's a constant hike up Everest, and you're constantly going, and there's never a it's tops to reach, but it's a whole it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's kind of the spiritual Sherpa thing I do with people, certainly, and that's some.
Well, yeah, you have your schematic system that you use. Is that in your book, or is that something separate you do when you're helping people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a trained shaman, but that's kind of the next step in the next book is actually I want to go train to be. They have these training places, and it's rather pricey. But that's going to be kind of sorcery 201. Is that's the next step up. But I certainly have. I'm very aware of the trainings, and I have a really good foot in this world. The best shamans have, one foot in this world and one foot in the next. And you have to have one in each. And, if you have two in each, well, now you're, the kind of RPC character that is just not questioning anything and being the sheep. And if you have both feet on the other side, then now you can't reach people because you're too out there. You see the spiritual people that just talk, and you can't relate to them because they're too far or on the other side. So you have to have one foot in, one foot out. That's the best way to be able to speak to people, is having one foot in, one foot out. So that's what I try to have. And yeah, I definitely, it's fun to see people grow and go through that. So it's very rewarding. That's for sure.
So I'm sorry. So is the system that you personally use in your book,
Yeah,
or is
it is, yeah.
okay, okay,
It's the
okay,
13 rungs.
okay,
Yeah, that's the system I use, and
okay.
and I go through those with people, and I try to have them read the book and audio too. I have it's on Audible, and I think it's on Spotify, but I know a lot of people don't have time to sit down to read a book, and the audio is good too because I get to tell my own jokes, and I do voices in it. It's fun. But yeah, that's what I do with people, is we kind of work our way through the system, and that's through the book. So, and that's the awakenings that happen, because it's a map. It was what I was given as the map, the blueprint of how to help people, and so that's what I use.
Now, do you concentrate more on men, or do you work with men and women?
Men and women. It's yeah. It's both. But I certainly I know how to speak to men. I can speak their language. You speak through pop culture parables and technology metaphors and humor, and now you can explain what made Jesus such an effective spiritual teacher is he spoke the language of the times. And so I speak the language of these times, and there are movies I tell people to watch, and okay, go watch this movie, and get back to me and see how it relates to everything that we're talking about. And those are eye-opening things, like Groundhog Day is like how actually life works. I mean, if you think about that movie,
Yes.
he gets trapped in his own negative energy,
Yeah.
going into the little town, and he gets stuck in a repetitive loop, like the same day over and over again. Which, how many people do we know that are? It's not actually February 2nd over and over again, but it's the
Yeah.
same day over and over again, and they're stuck in this negative cycle. And the way he changes is by changing his own energy. And now all
Mhm.
of a sudden, what was his own personal hell, this little town, now
Yep.
all of a sudden becomes his own little heaven, and he doesn't want to leave. And so that's how so it's speaking through movies and things like
Mhm.
that I think that the secrets of the universe are hidden in the nooks and crannies of pop
Of
culture.
these things.
You just got to
Yes.
know where to look. That's the language I speak to
Yeah.
people, and these illustrations are what help people awaken.
Mhm. Read The Alchemist.
Yep, that's yeah, Alvin, I love that one. That's a great one.
So what's a movie, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, now I want everybody to Justin is so cool. If you guys are listening to the audio version of this and not the video, watch the video too, because he is such a cool dude. But what would you say to somebody that's thinking like, I'm maybe I'll reach out to him, maybe I'll read the book, and you're like, okay, watch this movie.
Yeah,
What
I
would
would go
be your
with yeah, I didn't mention kind of Groundhog Day, but that's kind of one everyone's hopefully seen by now. It's kind of a classic, but Free Guy. So with Ryan Reynolds, the movie Free Guy, where he is trapped in a video game, and he is an RPC, a role-playing character in the video game, and he starts to question his reality, and he starts to awaken to what his world is, and these other RPCs, and the world that he is in is a video
okay.
game, and he starts to awaken to that. And that's whoever wrote that movie is a super
I've never seen it. I just wrote
that
it down.
That's yeah, and so it's a lesser known movie like that, and understand that that can be you. You
Yeah.
can be Guy and start going through your own awakening process, and when you do that, you start seeing the other role-playing characters in this game that we're in the simulation and, like, things like, "Oh, okay, this is how things are working," so that movie is where I would say everyone for everyone to start. If you haven't seen Free Guy, go see
Okay.
it and become know that you are Guy. You can
Okay.
awaken to your programming.
So anybody that's like maybe feeling lost or feeling like they're not being their authentic self or maybe, isn't sure like who they really are, start with that, start with meditation, start with your book. Super
Yep.
easy. It's that simple.
Yeah, I'll send you a free book. Yeah, I'll send yeah, you don't even have to pay for it. So, but yeah, and I'm there for to always answer questions and things like that with, on the email and stuff, and you can always
Yeah.
do a free session, and, like, my thing is, the money will come later, but right now I wanna get out there and start helping people in
It's your
whatever way I can.
purpose.
Yeah, and it's great. It gets me high. Like, it's my new drug. It's, like,
Yeah.
helping people take back their power and become everything they're meant to be
Mhm.
gets me super high. So, like, it's never like a pain for me or like it's,
Right.
that's why I do it for free because it just that it gets me high. Like I
Yeah.
paid for drugs to get me high and this gets me high for free. So, yeah, it's yeah.
Are you
Let me
still doing stand up?
so I want to incorporate the stand up into I want to do like tours and stuff, but it's the stand up will be part of it because I no longer just want to make people laugh. I want to make them think and feel too.
Yeah.
In those three things is growth. Laugh, think,
Mhm.
feel, grow. And so, I want to incorporate it in, but like I can't go to like an open mic, stand up comedy at 10 p.m. and half the audience is drunk and like I want to get up there and start with a meditation, like they're gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna throw their drink at me, like no,
Yeah. You
no,
need a different environment than that.
a different environment, a little bit more elevated of an audience. So it's still coming together into like how I want this to look, but to be able to incorporate everything together and
Yeah.
the laugh thing, feel thing, and yeah, I hope I've got a 5-year plan and I still haven't even reached year one yet. So it's all coming. It's there, but I'm not out to the there's no avenue. I'm creating something new. There's no avenue for a mystical comedian.
Mhm.
There's no mystical comedian tryouts. That's I just made up that term. So yes, I'm still doing the comedy, but in a very different way. And
Right.
see how it comes together.
Well, you mentioned your email earlier. How else can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, there's the book is on Amazon. It's also the website, which is awakenthesorcerer.com with a U. And then, as I said, I deleted all my social media, but I got back on Instagram about 5 months ago to be able to connect with people, and that's sorcerer_13 with a U. And that's all I have right now because it's been so nice being off social media that, like, I need something, I guess, but those are the ways to get a hold of me. So SOURCERER_13.
Okay, there's a couple on here. Oh, here you are, Justin Shaw. Perfect. I'm
Hey, follow me.
following you.
Awesome, I'll follow you back.
Perfect. Well, thank you. This has been like really, really awesome. I think it's going to resonate with so many people. And you're so down to earth about it. And you're so like just happy. And I can tell that you are on this like amazing trajectory of your life. And thank you so much for like being a guest on this. It's just amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been very fun, and
And
yeah,
you're
yeah,
a trauma rock star.
I I feel like it, as are you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The content on this podcast revolves around personal life experiences and is meant to serve as a learning tool. I am not a certified therapist or medical expert. This podcast doesn't offer medical, psychological, or professional advice. If you're curious about your mental or physical well being, feel free to reach out to a licensed healthcare professional for assistance.